Marcus Thorne gripped the heated leather steering wheel of the brand-new Ford Explorer, the warmth seeping into his calloused hands, a stark contrast to the bone-chilling November wind outside. For the first time in 6 months, he wasn't feeling the deep, dull ache in his lower back that usually accompanied the end of a double shift at the construction site. Today, the adrenaline of anticipation was the only fuel he needed. He adjusted the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of his own tired but grinning reflection. At 40, gray was just starting to pepper his beard, but right now he felt like a teenager about to pick up his prom date. He glanced at the passenger seat where a sweet potato pie from the bakery sat, Vanessa's favorite comfort food, foreshadowing the need for comfort soon. The rich, spicy scent of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the cabin, mixing with the intoxicating smell of new car leather. This wasn't just a car, it was a promise kept. Marcus navigated the Explorer through the gray, winding streets of Philadelphia. The trees in Mount Airy had already shed most of their leaves, their bare branches scratching against the slate-colored sky. It was going to be a hard winter. Last year, Vanessa's old sedan had finally given up the ghost on the heater. He remembered watching her drive off to school one morning in January, her breath puffing in white clouds inside the car, wrapped in 3 scarves just to survive the commute. That image had haunted him. It was the reason he had spent every weekend since May lying to her. Going fishing with the boys, he'd say, or helping Dave fix his deck. The lies tasted like ash in his mouth every time, but they were necessary. He wasn't fishing. He was picking up extra shifts, pouring concrete and hauling lumber until his muscles screamed, stashing away every extra dollar in a separate account. He wanted something safe for her. Something sturdy. This Ford Explorer, deep blue like the ocean, was solid American steel. It had heated seats, 4-wheel drive, and safety ratings that would keep his wife and their daughter, Layla, safe through any blizzard Philly could throw at them. He turned onto his street, his heart doing a little nervous flutter. He checked the dashboard clock. 3:45 p.m. Vanessa would be home from school, probably grading papers at the kitchen table or starting to prep for Sunday dinner a couple of days early. He imagined pulling into the driveway, honking the horn twice, their secret signal, and watching her face when she realized this shining beast wasn't a rental, but hers. He'd tell her, "Baby, no more freezing. No more worrying if the engine will turn over." The familiar brick row houses of his neighborhood rolled by. It was a good neighborhood, quiet and proud, the kind of place where people swept their porches and looked out for each other. But as Marcus neared his house number, his foot instinctively eased off the gas. Something was wrong. The picture in his head didn't match the reality in front of him. There, parked squarely in his driveway, right where he planned to put the Explorer, was a car he didn't recognize. It wasn't a neighbor's visiting relative, and it certainly wasn't anyone from the church. It was a silver Mercedes-Benz, low to the ground and aggressively expensive, the kind of car that didn't belong in a foreman's driveway. It gleamed arrogantly under the streetlights that were just flickering on. Marcus pulled the Explorer up to the curb, parking it awkwardly behind the luxury vehicle. He killed the engine, the silence of the cabin suddenly feeling oppressive rather than peaceful. He stared at the license plate. He didn't know it. He looked past the Mercedes. Vanessa's battered old sedan was parked on the street, tucked away as if to make room for this shiny visitor. A cold knot formed in his stomach, tighter than any muscle spasm he'd felt on the job site. Why was a man's car, and let's be honest, that was a man's car, parked in his spot while his wife was home alone? Layla was at Mama Louise's for the afternoon. The house was empty except for Vanessa. The joy of the surprise evaporated, replaced by a primitive, defensive instinct. His hands, which had been so warm moments ago, suddenly felt ice cold. He kills the engine, grabbing the pie box with a trembling hand, and marches toward the front door, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. We're just getting started, and the tension is already rising. If you are enjoying this detail and want to see how this unfolds for the Thorne family, please do me a favor and drop a 2 in the comment section. I love knowing that you are here with us. Also, make sure you are part of our family by hitting that subscribe button for Black King and clicking the bell icon. We share powerful stories like this every day, and we don't want you to miss out. Thank you for your support. It keeps us going. Now, let's get back to Marcus. The front door was unlocked, and when Marcus stepped inside, The house was unnervingly silent, save for the faint sound of laughter drifting down from the upstairs bedroom. He stood in the entryway, the heavy oak door clicking shut behind him, shutting out the cold wind but trapping him in a suffocating atmosphere of dread. The air inside didn't smell like Sunday dinner prep. It smelled faintly of expensive cologne, a sharp musky scent that definitely didn't belong to him. He moved into the living room, his work boots heavy on the hardwood floor. Usually, by this time of day, the house was immaculate. Vanessa prided herself on keeping a tidy home, a habit from her mother. But today, the living room was cluttered with Layla's toys. A plastic dollhouse was overturned near the sofa, and colorful building blocks were scattered across the rug like jagged little landmines. It was a detail Vanessa usually cleans up immediately after Layla leaves for her grandmother's, hinting she has been too distracted or busy with something else to care about the state of their home. Marcus navigated through the mess, his grip on the bakery box tightening until the cardboard began to buckle. The laughter came again. It wasn't the tired, comfortable chuckle they shared while watching TV after a long week. This was bright, effervescent laughter. It was the sound of a woman being charmed. He reached the bottom of the stairs. The photos lining the wall, their wedding day, Layla's baptism, a trip to the Jersey Shore, seemed to stare back at him like ghosts of a life that was currently unraveling upstairs. He climbed the stairs slowly, one heavy step at a time. The wood creaked under his weight, but the two people in the master bedroom were too engrossed to notice. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Marcus stopped just outside, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He didn't want to look. He wanted to turn around, get back in his new Ford Explorer, and drive until the gas ran out. But he couldn't. He had to know. He reached out with a trembling hand and pushed the door open. The scene that greeted him burned itself instantly into his retinas. Vanessa was sitting on the edge of their bed, the bed they had shared for 12 years. But she didn't look like his Vanessa. She wasn't wearing her usual cardigan and slacks. She was wearing a stunning, expensive red dress that hugged her curves in ways he hadn't seen in years. It was silk, sleeveless, and looked like it cost more than his mortgage payment. Her hair was done up in a style he'd never seen before, elegant and severe. Beside her, sitting too close on one of the dining room chairs they must have dragged upstairs, was the owner of the silver Mercedes. He was a handsome man, older than Marcus, with graying temples and a jawline that looked carved from granite. He was dressed in a sharp, tailored gray suit that screamed money. He was leaning in toward Vanessa, pointing at something, his hand brushing the air inches from her bare shoulder. They looked perfect together. Polished. Successful. A matching set. And Marcus, in his dust-covered flannel and work boots, felt like an intruder in his own life. The shock disconnected his brain from his hands. The box of sweet potato pie slipped from his fingers. It hit the floor with a wet, heavy thud, splitting open and splattering orange filling across the pristine hallway carpet. The sound shattered the moment like a gunshot. Vanessa jumped up, her hand flying to her throat. When she saw Marcus standing in the doorway, the blood drained from her face, leaving her pale beneath her makeup. She looked terrified, not happy to see him, not surprised by a gift, but terrified. "Marcus," she breathed, her voice trembling. You're early." Marcus stepped into the room, stepping over the ruined pie without looking down. His eyes were locked on the man in the suit. The intimacy of the scene, the dress, the strange man, the bedroom setting, snapped something inside him. The exhaustion of 6 months of double shifts crashed into the rage of betrayal. "Who is this man?" Marcus demanded, his voice cracking, deep and dangerous. He pointed a shaking finger at the stranger. "Why is there a strange man in our bedroom, Vanessa?" The stranger, Julian, stands up slowly, smoothing his suit jacket with infuriating calmness, and says, "Mr. Thorne, I presume? You're home early." "I think there's a misunderstanding," Julian said, his voice smooth and polished, sounding like he belonged in a boardroom, not Marcus's bedroom. He didn't look afraid of the furious husband standing a few feet away. He looked like a man used to managing crises for a living. "Misunderstanding," Marcus repeated, the word tasting like bile. He stepped further into the room, kicking the door shut behind him. The sound made Vanessa flinch. "I find another man in my house, next to my wife who's dressed for a gala, and you think I'm confused? Get out. Before I throw you out. Marcus, stop. Vanessa stepped between them, her hands raised. Please, just look. Look at the bed. Marcus glared at her, betrayal burning in his chest, but his eyes flicked past her to the bed. In his shock, he hadn't noticed it before. Propped up against the pillows was Vanessa's laptop. The screen was open, displaying a waiting for host screen for a video conference. A small ring light was clipped to the top of the monitor, casting that professional glow on her face. It's an interview, Marcus, Vanessa said, her voice frantic. It's a final round interview. Julian isn't. We aren't together. He's my mentor. He came over to help me set up the lighting and prep my answers. That's all. Marcus looked at the laptop, then back at Julian, who nodded solemnly. The adrenaline that had surged through Marcus began to curdle into confusion. An interview? For what? You have a job. You have tenure at the elementary school. Vanessa straightened her spine, smoothing the silk of her red dress. It was a gesture of defiance he hadn't seen in a long time. It's for Meridian Education, she said, and the name clearly meant something to her, even if it meant nothing to him. They're a top consulting firm based in Atlanta. They want me for a senior director position. The salary is $140,000 a year, Marcus. That's double what we make combined. The numbers hit him, but not as hard as the location. Atlanta, he whispered. That's 800 miles away. You're interviewing for a job in another state without even telling me. Because I knew you'd say no. Vanessa cried, tears finally spilling over her perfectly applied makeup. I knew you'd talk about Layla's school and your job and your mother and how we're fine right here. But I'm not fine, Marcus. I'm suffocating. I've been planning this for 3 months because I wanted to present it to you as a done deal, not a dream you could shoot down. 3 months. The timeline twisted in Marcus's gut. For 3 months, while he was breaking his back laying concrete on weekends to buy her a safe car, she was plotting an escape route. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the heavy key fob of the Ford Explorer. I didn't say no, Marcus said quietly, his voice trembling with a different kind of pain now. I said, I'll fix it. You were cold in that old car, V. You were stressed. So I worked every weekend since May. I saved every dime. I bought you a brand new Ford Explorer today. It's sitting in the driveway right now. He held up the keys, the plastic catching the light. I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to make your life easier here. With me. Vanessa stared at the keys. Her expression crumbled for a second. A flash of guilt, of love, of the old Vanessa. She looked out the window where the blue SUV was parked behind Julian's Mercedes. Then she looked at Julian, who stood silently by the dresser, checking his watch. She took a deep breath and hardened her face. That's sweet, Marcus. It really is. But a car with heated seats doesn't fix the fact that I want more than this neighborhood. I want a career. I want to be someone important. She looked him in the eye. I can't stay here just for a car. I need this future. The rejection was absolute. She wasn't choosing another man. She was choosing a life that didn't include him. Marcus let his hand drop. The keys felt like lead. Julian picked up his briefcase from the floor. The interview was clearly over. Or maybe he had seen enough. He buttoned his jacket, walking past Marcus with the cool indifference of a man who viewed people as assets or liabilities. He paused at the door, leaning in close so only Marcus could hear. She has potential, Marcus. Don't be the anchor that drowns her. That was a heartbreaking moment for Marcus. Before we see how he handles this betrayal, I have a quick request. If you are still watching and finding value in this detailed story, please comment the number 1 below. It lets me know you are right here with us. And if you haven't officially joined the Black King family yet, I highly recommend you subscribe and turn on the notification bell right now so you never miss a video. Your support is exactly what helps us keep creating great content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's continue and see what happens next. The text message from the unknown number was brief and unsettling. Meet me at Black & Brew on Passink Avenue, 10 a.m. Alone. It's about Vanessa. Julian. Marcus stared at the screen of his phone, his eyes gritty from a sleepless night spent on the couch. The silence of the house was deafening. Vanessa had left early, supposedly to get her hair done before her onboarding call at noon. The words Julian had whispered yesterday echoed in Marcus's mind. Don't be the anchor that drowns her. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his old work truck. He couldn't bring himself to drive the new Explorer today. He assumed this meeting was a formality, a civilized way for the other man to tell him to sign divorce papers and step aside for Vanessa's bright new future. He arrived at Black and Brew 10 minutes early. It was a small, hipster coffee shop on Passink Avenue, smelling intensely of roasted beans and damp wool from the morning rain. The Saturday crowd was bustling, young couples sharing pastries, students on laptops, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside Marcus. Julian was already there, sitting at a small corner table. But he didn't look like the arrogant corporate shark from yesterday. He looked tired. The crisp gray suit was replaced by a casual sweater, and the confident smirk was gone, replaced by a grim line. Marcus approached the table, his muscles coiled, ready for a fight. You got 5 minutes, Marcus said, not bothering to sit. Tell me why I shouldn't drag you outside right now. Sit down, Marcus, Julian said, his voice low and weary. He didn't offer a handshake. Instead, he slid a thick manila folder across the table. I'm not here to take your wife. I'm here to stop her from ruining her life. And yours. Marcus frowned, confused by the shift in tone. He sat slowly, eyeing the folder. What is this? The truth about Meridian education, Julian said. Open it. Marcus flipped the folder open. It wasn't love letters or divorce papers. It was financial reports, emails, and court documents. His foreman's eyes, used to scanning blueprints and contracts, picked out the keywords quickly. Fraud, misrepresentation, class action lawsuit. It's a churn and burn operation, Julian explained, taking a sip of black coffee. They recruit passionate teachers like Vanessa, people who are desperate for change but naive about business. They use them to sell predatory curriculum packages to underfunded school districts. When the schools realize the materials are junk, Meridian disappears, and the consultants, people like Vanessa, are the ones left holding the bag. They get sued. They get blacklisted. Marcus looked up, stunned. It's a scam. It's a pyramid scheme with a diploma, Julian corrected. Look at the second page. The benefits package. There is no 401k matching. The health insurance has a 6-month waiting period. If she leaves her tenure track now, she loses her state pension, her medical coverage, everything. For a job that might not exist in 6 months. Why? Marcus stammered, his anger deflating into horror. Why are you part of it? Why are you helping her? Julian looked away, staring out the rainy window. For the first time, he looked his age. My wife was a teacher. 4th grade. She hated the red tape, wanted to make a bigger impact. A company like this scooped her up 10 years ago. The stress, the guilt when she realized what she was selling. Julian's voice cracked. She had a stroke at 42. She died thinking she was a failure. He turned back to Marcus, his eyes fierce. I stayed in the industry to track these companies. To warn people. I tried to hint at it with Vanessa during our sessions, but she was so eager, so blinded by the salary. She wouldn't listen to me. But she might listen to you. Marcus looked down at the documents, the proof that his wife wasn't running toward a dream, but off a cliff. He realized with a pang of shame that his judgment of Julian had been completely wrong. He had seen a suit and assumed a villain. He hadn't seen the grieving husband underneath. I'm not the anchor, Marcus, Julian said softly. The job is the anchor. If she signs that contract, she sinks. Marcus closed the folder, his hand trembling, but this time with resolve, not rage. She thinks I'm just jealous. She thinks I don't want her to succeed. Julian checked his watch. She's signing the contract at noon. You have less than 2 hours to show her this, or she belongs to them. Vanessa stood in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting the collar of her blazer, practicing her executive smile, trying to ignore the gnawing guilt in her gut. She had swapped the red dress for a sensible navy suit, trying to look the part of a senior director, but inside, she felt like a fraud. The house was too quiet. Marcus hadn't come home last night. He had slept in his truck or at a friend's she didn't know, and Layla was still at her grandmother's. She walked to the living room window and peered through the blinds. The rain was coming down harder now. She looks out the window at the Ford Explorer still parked in the driveway, the red bow now drooping in the rain, a symbol of the love she is about to drive away from. The deep blue paint, chosen because it was her favorite color, looked almost black under the gray sky. It sat there like a loyal dog waiting for a master who had abandoned it. "It's for the best," she whispered to herself, checking the time on her phone. 11:50 a.m. 10 minutes until the onboarding call where she would sign the digital contract and officially become an employee of Meridian Education. 10 minutes until her new life began. The front door burst open. Vanessa jumped, dropping her phone on the sofa cushion. Marcus stood in the doorway, soaked to the bone, his chest heaving as if he had run all the way from the city center. "I have a call in 10 minutes, Marcus," Vanessa said, her voice rising in automatic defense. "Please, don't start. I can't do this right now." Marcus didn't yell. He didn't throw the keys. He walked into the room, leaving muddy footprints on the rug, and placed a damp manila folder gently on the coffee table next to her laptop. "I'm not here to stop you," he said, his voice surprisingly steady, though his eyes were pleading. "I'm here to let you know what you're really signing." Vanessa looked at the folder, then at him. "What is this?" "It's from Julian," Marcus said. "Read it. Please, V. Just read the first page." Vanessa hesitated, but the urgency in his voice made her reach for the folder. She opened it. Her eyes scanned the top document, a class action lawsuit filed in Georgia against Meridian Education for deceptive employment practices and fraudulent curriculum sales. She flipped the page. An internal email chain discussing how to cycle out consultants before their benefits kicked in. Another document highlighting the lack of pension matching. "They hire teachers because they trust you," Marcus explained softly, stepping closer but not touching her. "They use your face, your reputation, to sell junk to schools. And when the lawsuits hit, Meridian folds and rebrands, and you're the one left with no job, no pension, and no health insurance." Julian's wife, she died because of the stress of a job just like this. Vanessa felt the blood drain from her face. She looked at the laptop screen, where the Meridian logo spun cheerfully, waiting for her to join. The salary, the title, the apartment in Atlanta, it was all bait. She looked over at the red dress hanging on the back of the dining chair. Suddenly, it didn't look like a symbol of her empowerment. It looked like a costume. A cheap disguise she had worn to trick herself into believing she was someone else. The illusion shattered. The weight of what she had almost done crashed down on her. She had almost traded 12 years of marriage and her daughter's stability for a scam. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand covering her mouth. "Marcus, I didn't know." Her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the sofa, the papers scattering around her. Sobs racked her body, ugly, wrenching sobs of shame. She waited for the "I told you so." She waited for him to tell her she was foolish, that she was greedy. Instead, the sofa dipped beside her. Strong, warm arms wrapped around her shaking shoulders. Marcus pulled her in tight, resting his chin on her head. "It's okay," he murmured into her hair. "You didn't know. They're pros at lying, V. You're just a teacher who wanted to do good." "I treated you so badly," she cried into his wet flannel shirt. "I hurt you." "We're a team, V," Marcus said firmly, tightening his grip. "We don't let the team lose. You and me. That's the real deal. Everything else is just noise." As she cries into his shoulder, the phone rings. It's the company calling for her digital signature. Vanessa wipes her eyes, looks at Marcus, and reaches for the phone. "I have one last call to make." 3 months later, the winter frost had finally melted, replaced by the crisp promise of early spring in Philadelphia. The dogwood trees lining the streets of Mount Airy were just beginning to show their white and pink blossoms, and the biting wind that had chilled Marcus to the bone back in November had softened into a gentle breeze. In the thorn driveway, the Ford Explorer sat gleaming in the afternoon sun. It was no longer covered in road salt or hiding behind a stranger's Mercedes. It was washed, waxed, and currently being loaded with boxes of art supplies and textbooks. It wasn't just a car anymore. It was the official transport vehicle for Philly Scholars, the after-school program Vanessa had launched last month at the community center. Marcus stood on the porch, watching his wife work. She wasn't wearing the red silk dress, nor the stifling corporate suit. She was wearing jeans and a Teach for Future t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired, but it was a good tired, the kind that comes from building something real, not chasing a mirage. She had declined Meridian's offer, accepted the temporary loss of income, and poured that red dress energy into saving kids in her own zip code. "You missed a spot on the fender," Marcus teased, walking down the steps with a pitcher of iced tea. Vanessa rolled her eyes, smiling, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "If the foreman has complaints, he can grab a rag." Marcus laughed, handing her a glass. He pulled a folded letter from his back pocket. "This came today. Postmarked from D.C." Vanessa took the letter, wiping her hands on her jeans. She recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Julian. She read it aloud, her voice quiet. He had found a job teaching ethics at a community college in Washington. The pay was terrible, he wrote, but he slept through the night for the first time in years. "Thank you," the letter ended, "for reminding me what protecting your family actually looks like. You saved more than just yourself that day." "He's a good man," Marcus said, taking the letter back. "Just lost his way for a while." "We all did," Vanessa whispered, leaning her head on Marcus's shoulder. "All right, break it up, lovebirds." A booming voice came from the back door. Mama Louise stood there, wiping her hands on an apron. "The pot roast is on the table, and Layla is about to eat the cornbread before I've even said grace." They moved to the backyard, where a long table was set under the oak tree. It was Sunday dinner, a non-negotiable tradition reinstated after the Meridian incident. The air smelled of slow-cooked beef, thyme, and fresh grass. Layla was already seated, swinging her legs, eyeing the basket of rolls. They sat down, joining hands, Marcus, Vanessa, Layla, and Mama Louise. A circle unbroken. Mama Louise bowed her head, giving thanks for the food, the weather, and the stubbornness of sons who know when to fight for their wives. As the bowls were passed around and the laughter started, Vanessa tapped her glass with a fork. The table went quiet. She looked at Layla, then at Mama Louise, and finally, her gaze rested on Marcus. Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the panicked tears of the winter. They were clear and steady. "I want to make a toast," she said, her voice wavering slightly, "to the best surprise I ever got." She paused, reaching out to cover Marcus's hand with hers. "Not the car, although the heated seats are nice, but the man who drove it home. The man who saw me when I didn't see myself, and who loved me enough to tell me the hard truth." Marcus squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin, the warmth of the sun, and the warmth of a life that had almost been lost but was now found. "To us," he said softly. "To us," the family echoed. As they laugh and pass the cornbread, the camera pulls back to show the Ford Explorer in the driveway, a silent guardian of a family that almost broke, but bent back together instead.